In this video, I'm going to explain to you why I think that there's a huge global depression, not recession, but depression coming to the whole world. And this is just based off numbers of what I'm seeing, and I'm going to tell you why. And I got data to back it all up and some other facts from a business standpoint, from a business owner's standpoint perspective, right? So this is just purely me objective talking about it. So let me know before we even jump into the video, do you think this is likely or not? And let me know if these numbers make sense to you or not. So in order for something like that to have to happen, the whole world needs to be affected by, joblessness and all that kind of other stuff. So one thing I noticed is that growing up in Switzerland in Europe, we had a saying that everything the US does, we're like 9 months to a year to 2 years behind. That can be trends, financial stuff, anything that starts in the US, we're kind of like a year or so behind it. And after that, in 2008, we experienced that in Europe a little bit, but most of the time it starts on the West Coast and then moves East Coast or something like it, and then trends and fads and all that kind of other stuff. And so is it with tech layoffs, right? So now I'm looking at it like, what do you mean, right? So I came to this interesting article that said, how much do you think, and let me know in the comments below, did tech salaries go down? Because we have high interest rates, all that kind of other stuff. So how much do you think in San Jose, California, tech salaries went down? So I'll give you the numbers. It went down 15%. In New York, tech salaries went down 11.5%. In Seattle, tech salaries went down 12.5%. So that is over, we don't have the data from 2024 yet, but that was from 2022 to 2023, right? So now they're like, well, that isn't, enough data to show anything, right? Yes and no. So one thing that indicates is that if the US doesn't have, growth and all that kind of other stuff, there's going to be layoffs. And US companies are everywhere. YouTube, Facebook, Google, Meta, and some companies that you don't even think about service the world. And so now you're looking at like, okay, and how would you say something that, there's going to be like a depression? Well, when you look at this article that said that that FedEx lays off up to 2,000 employees in Europe amid cost cutting, to cut costs, right? So now I'm looking at it like, okay, they're laying off people to cut costs. And how do you lay off people? Well, if you lay people off, that means less people ship stuff, right? So that means there's less volume. You have to lay people off and you work your employees the same amount. So you're not growing, you're laying people off, right? So that's all right. That's FedEx, right? So then I have another chart that I'm going to show you right now. Who else laid off? And this is a way more detailed chart. So I'm going to teleport myself to the computer real quick and I'll be right back.
We're just looking at January to this month, right? So there's some crazy numbers in here. So look at this. Look at all these layoffs. PayPal did layoff, Unity did layoff, Blocksberry, SAP, or SAP, whatever you want to call it, Tesla, Toshiba. So this is global. Lee Motors, Paytm, it's crazy. Toshiba again. Now we see Microsoft just did layoffs this month. And so in addition, Riot Games, Stitch Fix, so Snapchat did layoffs. So it's like, it's all, Dell did layoffs, Ericsson, ByteDance, so it's SunPower, so it's all of these companies that did layoffs, and it's crazy, and you can track them right here. So I ran, so it's about 150,000. That's crazy.
Okay, so now you saw Toshiba, all these other ones laid people off, right? And you wouldn't think that, but all that money that is get pulled out of circulation is going to be tough, and the social system or countries that have like a social net needs to start kicking in, right? So you're like, okay, but that's just, another few other companies. So what does that have to do with the US? Well, US companies invest heavily into other countries, right? So let's look at this article from Meta that they're closing down shop in Nigeria. And then you're like, oh my gosh. So now we're looking at US companies try to save money, cut jobs in other places of the world, right? So now we're looking at like, okay, we are cutting costs everywhere, wherever we need. We're outsourcing, we're doing AI movement and all that. And now we're back to Microsoft that also cut another 1,500 jobs due to AI, right? So now we're at all these people that got laid off. And when you look at on LinkedIn, job search, Indeed, and whatnot, you now know that from my first article we saw, let me know if you agree or not, you're going to make 15% less, right? So what does that mean? Once you're making 15% less than you did the year previously before because you got laid off, that really, really sucks. So what does that mean? That means you're going to invest 15% less. That's going to mean that you're going to buy 15% less stuff. And that means that you're going to have 15% of everything gets degraded, right? Once you're not making that much, you need to make cost cutting or you put it on credit cards. But we're not talking about these credit card brawlers, right? So now you're like, how does this affect the world? Well, when all these companies are starting to do layoffs, and now, with the globalization, and a lot of stuff does get spent in America, right? That's why, the US dollar, the petrodollar, and all that. And now I'm seeing other articles that say, we're not driving that much because people are getting laid off, people can't afford stuff. So fuel, I think by 2030 is going to be way cheaper because we're not using that much anymore with all that kind of stuff. So now I'm looking at it like, okay, so some countries in the world haven't seen these effects that happened here in the US, right? So if you're somewhere around the world and you're saying, "Oh, my business is going great," my town or whatnot is still, doing great. The local economy is doing great. Yep, and I believe that. Just the question is just for how long longer can they keep it up, right? Because Americans at one point are gonna get a maximum amount of credit that they can get, right? So you can't just get more credit card. And for Europeans, for foreigners, that's a crazy, crazy example. But a lot of Americans here in the States, they live kind of by the credit card, right? Because we as Americans put things on credit cards, right? You can hook up your credit card or your debit card to pay your bills and they just automatically deduct that. In Europe, that would be crazy, right? They send you an invoice or something or an email and then you pay via wire transfer or Venmo or Zelle or something like it. But just to have it automatically deducted would be, crazy in US terms, right? So now when we're talking about all these crazy, crazy layoffs, that means that other companies in Europe, around the world, are going to do the exact same thing. Just because the US is going through this AI revolution of layoffs, every country in the world at one point is going to face that. And it might be that you're like, oh, my country's just purely based off of tourism, and that is going to be also an effect because at one point Americans are going to run out of what do you call it, severance, and they cannot get another job making the same amount. So that means that their travel costs are going to be cut. That means that your place that you're talking so very highly about is going to get less people to it, right? Just kind of common knowledge, because it's not the problem for US people isn't to travel, isn't the cost of getting, like staying in another country, it's traveling to another country. And that's expensive. It's not living in another country or staying in Thailand or Bali, Indonesia. it is actually getting there. That's the most expensive part. And airplane tickets are expensive, right? And so once we're seeing that we're going to cut down on all that kind of stuff, that's going to have a huge, huge ripple effect. But right now, there's still a lot of people on unemployment, not unemployment, on severance that haven't felt the true effect of it. And I just saw 3 TikTok videos of people trying to get jobs that couldn't. And they've been they're sending out like 100 applications a week trying to do it, and they're not getting any responses. So now I'm like, okay, if it's that hard to get a job, what do? You press salaries even more, right? So if you're a business owner like myself, if you have to hire somebody, what would you do? You would hire probably the most educated person with the cheapest cost to you, right? And in this TikTok video that they were talking about, oh, I can't find another job, said they couldn't even get a temporary transition job, like a contractor gig or something else, because even those jobs are gone. So now all you have is actually applying like crazy and underbidding yourself because you're competing with people from Microsoft, Google, Tesla, from the FANG companies. You're trying to compete with those guys. Good luck on trying to do that, right? So now, how is this going to reflect into the world? Well, if you are programmers in other countries, or you do software development and you do other things, you might have leadway till they outsource, they move jobs overseas, they move manufacturing. But at one point, when Americans going to stop buying and stop traveling, your job doing manufacturing will also come to a halt, because you as a manufacturer will have problems producing when nobody's buying. So supply and demand, right? And when there is no demand and you still produce, and we've saw that with Tesla, that they're just lining up and they're constantly decreasing prices, it's nobody wants them. That's why when you look online, you get these Teslas for pennies on the dollars now. They used to go for top dollars, right? So that is going to be a huge effect on everybody. And you're like, oh, it's it might not come to where I'm at. Oh, you will experience it. You just wait. Because nobody is the whole idea of the globalization kind of thing was to get, hey, let's put some supply chain over here and we put some supply chain over here. And then COVID came and shook it all up. And now you can even see rate, for to ship something on a truck from the East Coast to the West Coast, it's now $1.40. So it's not even sustainable buying a new truck. Somebody left me a comment of saying a new truck costs $400,000 and they're getting about $1.20 a mile or something, or $1.40 per mile. That's what they're paying. So now, how do you even make the payment to that? So it just doesn't make sense. So it's cheaper to just not do it. It's better to say, I'm not gonna do it, and be done with it, right? So that is going to be in a lot of places are going to be experiencing a similar thing. It might not be now, because the U.S. has always been run on credit, and we've always been the first thing, besides, that other accident that happened, in 2022. But when it comes to economics, we're with all these, tech companies and whatnot are experiencing it. And now with tech layoffs, and Google's not just laying off people here, they're laying people off around the globe. And when companies are doing all these layoffs, that means they're not growing. Because you wouldn't let people go if your company was growing, because you need people to grow your company at a certain rate, right? So it kind of makes sense when you look at, hey, in order for us to grow and get to the next level, we need to hire people that can do more jobs, that can then oversee, so we can get middle managers, upper managers, vice presidents, and then we can expand into different countries, invest, so they could also use our products. But when we're letting all these people go, then all of a sudden we don't need it anymore. And we are thinking twice about, oh, we're just staying in our corner and we're not making any moves because it's just not worth it, right? It doesn't make financial sense to invest into other countries right now if our own country isn't, paying the bill. If we can't pay the bills for us, we can't invest in other places, right? And then you're going to be seeing just like this semi truck just parked right outside. And I don't know if he's a owner operator or not, but it's just not worth it for him to drive. Probably wouldn't be for me. I'd be finding another job and just let it sit on the side of the house and seeing if I could get some kind of money for it. But it is crazy out here. And I've been seeing so many people um, crying on the internet about being let go, being shaky of waking up in the morning about, being let go. And it's just a matter of time till it spreads around the world. And then there we go. Depression is starting to happen because once you dial back those investments, it's going to take time to recoup, to restart them. And then people are going to think, oh, why is that? Why would the US do that? Well, because our leaders in the US don't think the right way. Like not like the politicians. It's these vice presidents that measure stuff wrong. Because when I just woke up today and I see Wells Fargo fired people because they had mouse jigglers. Have you ever seen these mouse jigglers? So Wells Fargo fired these people. Rather than measuring productivity, they measured attendance, like kindergarten. So look at what we are as Americans measuring. We're measuring attendance rather than performance. So when you are in an office, you just want the computer mouse to be moved. So just to show that you're actively on the computer. That's no productivity. That doesn't mean that you're doing anything. But what they don't know is what I would say is, why does that matter? Why does that matter if the mouse is moving or not? What you need to be focused on is reaching deadlines, reaching goals, and reaching milestones rather than actually have meetings about, like what really matters. And I bet you, these 12 people or whatever they fired because of mouse jiggling, that costed the Wells Fargo probably millions, probably 50 to $100 million to figure that out, because they had to have meetings about it. They had to have vice president approval about it. They were chatting. They had meetings. They probably even flew to Greece to figure something out, or they flew to a whole nother place, to have masterminds about it. How we're gonna track this and how we're gonna deal with it. But it is not what should be tracked. And we're making, pulling back these investments of letting these FedEx people go and letting all these, and, closing up all these shops is, we're not measuring how we can progress. We're just like, oh, there's something not right. Let's just let people go, trim the fat. And then, we'll revisit this in a year if the economy betters. So now I'm looking at it like, if everybody's going to do that, and it's not going to be pretty. It's just not, because everybody that's being let go is going to have to reapply to new jobs, new positions, and pay cuts are on the rise, baby. So you're going to get paid less because of supply and demand and the chart I showed you at the beginning. And I think you have to be kind of foolish if you think that it's not going to severely impact the world, because what's a trend here will be a trend everywhere, right? So when US companies take pay cuts, so will most other companies in the world think about the same thing. They just haven't implemented yet, right? And when I look at these Toshibas letting people go, these Lee Motors letting people go, it is just the name of the game. You let people go and you kind of figure it out afterwards. And the Spotify CEO was the only CEO that has ever said, that I've heard saying, oh, I didn't think that letting that many people go was going to affect our bottom line. So I was like, why would you even consider that it wouldn't affect you? Did you just have all these people on payroll that just showed up to work and sat in a chair and listened to music? Probably not. They were doing something. So now I'm just like, we're measuring the wrong progress. Instead of moving forward, we're moving backwards. And this is going to take a long time to recover. All these people, I made a video like last month, there were like 70,000 US workers being let go. And now, I think this month so far, there's another 8,000 being let go. And all these people need new jobs. And all these people are not going out to pizza places and aren't going out to get frozen yogurt. And they're not going out buying new cars. And so this is going to have a huge ripple effect into everybody. And today I went by the Toyota dealership and I saw that there were like 10, 15 salespeople standing outside with white shirts, and nobody was in the showroom floor, in those little booths. And it's a Friday. So, and dealerships aren't open on Sunday. So now I'm looking at it like, you don't need that many people because not that many people are going to be buying cars. You can actually let 60% go and do the rest with a few salespeople because nobody's in a position if buying cars right now with the trajectory how it goes, because you need to show pay stubs in the US because most of them are financed. And if they're not financed, you better not buy a car right now. You better save that money, drive it till the wheels fall off, because you do not know what's coming down the pipeline. And it is just sad. And I think we're in for an awakening. And I don't know if the presidency of the election is going to swing that much, but we need something new. We need somebody that will say, "Hey, we're done with these layoffs. Interest rates need to come down, and we need to start hiring people back so we can cut the losses and start, moving forward." Let me know what you guys think about this, but I think I explained it pretty dang well. How this is going to affect everybody, and how what starts in the US moves around the globe, because UPS, FedEx, Meta, Google, Snapchat, all these companies are US companies that have, huge impact on global markets in one way or another. IBM, Microsoft, so let me know what you think. I'm really interested to hear what you guys are saying. And if you guys want me to cover a topic, let me know. Shoot me an email or just send me an article. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one.